Hello and welcome to another advanced skeleton video. In this video we are going to take a closer look at corrective controls. Now we're seeing here corrective controls, and essentially what it is, it's additional controllers attached to the skin that can move around to give different shapes, and then the rotation of, in this case, the elbow, is set up to automatically drive these controllers to give a improved deformation as the elbow rotates. So let's see how we can set this up. What we'll do is we'll start off with a character that does not have this set up yet, and we'll do that by opening Advanced Skeleton. We'll go to the demo section, and this character is our demo character Conan. So we'll open a fresh version of the Conan rig, and we'll see here that that does not have any of the corrective controllers added. So we'll do that. We'll add the custom controllers, which is done here in the body section under the subsection called custom controllers. Now we have three types of custom controllers here. It's skin controls, cluster controls, and soft mode controls. There's pros and cons for each one, which you can learn more about by reading the information in the help images here. For this demo, we'll be using the skin controls, and the way to do that is creating a soft mode deformer. We'll start out here around the biceps area. Holding down B lets us set the radius, and we can kind of move the soft mode around and modify the radius until we get the effect that we're gonna want our new controller to have. Once we're happy with that, and I'll turn on the local so we get the local oriented orientation on the new controller. Now we'll hit create skin control. You can give it a name, or if you leave it blank, it'll automatically get a name depending on what it finds as the nearest joints. In this case, we get a new controller named skin 1 shoulder part 1 underscore R. Now, what can be handy when you are creating new skin controls is to turn on the joint visibility, which is found on the main controller, so that you can get a good visual representation where the joint has been parented to. And in this case, it's found the nearest joint, which turned out to be the right one. We wanted this to be parented under this joint. Now, there might be a situation where it is not parented under the right joint. In that case, you can specify the parent joint by adding which joint you want to be parent as part of the selection just before you hit create skin control, as mentioned on the bottom of this help image. So we have our first skin control for the elbow here. What I'll do is go ahead and create 3 on the inside of the bend and another 3 on the outside, and then we're going to set up the driving of those. So creating these controllers. Alright, we have our 6 skin controllers, and we are ready to start setting up the relationship, how that gets driven from the elbow rotation. And that is done by driving systems. So we'll close the body section, open the post section and the subsection driving systems. First thing we want to do, we want to set up the driving, and that is the elbow rotation. So we'll start off with rotating that, say about, for this character, about 60 degrees, just before the skin starts self-intersecting here. And then we'll move these skin controllers as we want them to be automatically driven into a new position. So the elbow is going to be pushed out a bit. This one is probably going to slide down a bit. Likewise, this slides up and this down. The inner crease here will push out a little bit. And for the biceps, let's just go ahead and scale that a bit down in this axis, at the same time up in another axis, and we'll move it a bit as well. Next, we're gonna hit the button Create Driving System. Now, it's important to note here that driving systems has a few different ways of working. By default, this is gonna be set to the option Create a New Controller. It's not the option that we want to use, but I'll show you what happens if we do run with the default option. What we get is a brand new controller that has an attribute, and when we change that value, it drives all those things into position. Now, that is not what we wanted. We wanted this corrective controls to move automatically based upon the rotation of the elbow, not a new controller. So I'm gonna hit undo, and this time, before I hit Create Driving System, I'll make sure that I select the controller that I want to be the driver, and in this drop down menu I'll choose the bottom option called Drive from Selected Object. Now, I'll do that a couple of times. You might notice right on the top here in this list, by the way, this is the list of detected changes in the rig. As I change between these two, you'll see that first entry at the top disappearing. So if you are to create a new controller, it would include the top entry here called FK Elbow Rotation. But if you go to the bottom and choose that you'll be driving from selected object, that is gone. And that's because this is no longer driven. This is the driver, as it states on the bottom here. We're going to drive from the FK Elbows Rotation. And yes, we want that to automatically mirror as well, and hit OK. This time we see we get no new controller created, but if we rotate the elbow, we can see that that now drives all these other controllers. And if we were to go look at the other side, we can see that we have automatically mirroring. Not only has the controllers been automatically created on the other side, but the driving system is also completely mirrored. Now, if you want to make any edits to this driving system, you want to alter the result, the position that these controllers are being driven into. One way we can do that is in the driving system options here. We can right click on this edit button that has a list of all the driving systems found on the rig. And we want to grab the one called elbow rotate at this amount. And that's what that looks like if you're leaving all the options on by default. So the default options that are on here is the applying test animation. It automatically applying test symmetry, and it's also filtering to show only the affected controllers. So all other controls are hidden, only the ones that are affected, and there's a piece of animation applied for 30 frames, so you can easily see the result by just scrubbing the time slider. If you want to make any changes here, you just got to make sure that you scrub to the end frame, frame 30, and make the changes at this point. Say you wanted, for example, the elbow to be a bit more pushed out, these guys to slide maybe a bit further. Some changes. You can scrub the animation to make sure you're happy with the result. If you are, you hit apply. Now, another thing we might want to do is add more keys to this system. So currently we got a key, we can see here at rotation at nearly 60 degrees. We might want to add some keys if we are driving it further. Say we rotate all the way up to, we'll just type in 90 degrees. If we want to add a key here, we'll just hit edit. Now we can see that the heads up display in the viewport here, that is telling us that we are editing the driving system for elbow rotations there at 90 degrees, and the font has turned red to indicate that you are editing an existing driving system but at a different value than the current driver. So once we reach this angle, we might want to start pushing these guys around a bit. Elbow might move a bit further, these guys might slide a bit further as well, and we'll hit apply. And as we now apply rotation to the elbow, we can see that it now has these two targets that it goes through. If you wanted to adjust how it transitions between those keys, you can right click on the graph button here and open the graph editor for the right elbow. Now that's going to show you a lot of curves, as that's the curves, set driven key curves for all the controllers in the system. If you want to just do one controller at a time, you can just simply select the controller, hit pick walk up, which that's the up key on your keyboard. That'll take you to the set-driven key node, and you can see the keys, and you might want to do something like smoothing out the curve to have an easier transition between the two targets. And you also might want to alter the curves, how they are affected by infinity, which basically means how they're going to react if you are overshooting the driver from what you have set from the driving system. So you can go in here and specify that post infinity you might want these keys to linearly continue. Another thing to note with the custom controllers is that if you wanted to hide all the custom controllers, there's a quick way of doing it. You select the main controller of the rig, and there is a custom control visibility switch here where you can toggle those on and off. Also, we'll turn off the joint visibility at this point and switch back on our custom joints visibility. And once again, we'll just test our driven controllers. We might also want to test that they work in IK. We're switching the arm to IK. Moving the IK target will rotate the elbow. So we can see that also in IK that the system is working. And that's it for this time. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.